Hi, everyone. I don't recall the source for the story, but it's often told that Napoleon Bonaparte once tried to gain entry into one of the big European restricted clubs. Now, back then, in order to gain entry, it was important that one be able to prove his or her worth by being able to identify and guarantee a certain pedigree. The maitre d' of the establishment, and I guess his bouncer, asked Napoleon to justify his right to enter. Whom are you a descendant of? He asked. Napoleon retorted, supposedly, I'm not a descendant, I'm an ancestor. And as we approach this week's Parsha, Parshas Toldos, one can only stop and marvel about where our own pride comes from. Indeed, at the beginning of the Parsha, it seems to imply that the significance runs from parent to child, but also from child to parent, both ways. Take a look at the first pasuk. The Eile Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham. The following are the descendants of Yitzchak, son of Avraham. Avraham, holy as Yitzchak. Avraham was the father of Yitzchak. That's right. Immediately in the very first pasuk of our parsha, we find Yitzchak's legacy connected to his being the son of Avraham, and at the same time, Avraham's legacy is legitimized by the fact that he birthed Yitzchak. Now, why does the Torah need to provide us with the double reference? If Yitzchak was the son of Avraham, then Avraham was Yitzchak's father. Why restate the obvious? And Rashi comments that the Torah wanted to close the door on the late Sanei Hador, the so-called mainstream tabloid and social media people of the day, who mocked and conspired to raise the possibility that Yitzchak was not legitimately the son of Avraham. And in order to end that rumor once and for all, Hashem made Avraham and Yitzchak look identical. There was no doubt who Yitzchak's father was. And Rashi's answer notwithstanding, I believe the question needs additional explanation. You see, while Rashi's explanation might help explain why the Torah offers the explanation here, it still leaves us lost in regard to the very first parak in Divrei Hayamim. For after telling us that the children of Avraham included Yitzchak and Yishmael in an earlier pasuk, we again read, Vayoled Avraham es Yitzchak, Avraham gave birth or begot Yitzchak. And once again, there seems to be a need to repeat the genealogy. Why? Why do we need to know that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak after knowing that Yitzchak was one of his sons? But allow me to ask a second question about Toldos that pervades not only the entirety of the Parsha, but also the Torah and the Jewish people itself. You see, the word Toldos, or history, or descendants, appears with four very different, distinct spelling variations in the Torah. Sometimes it's spelled without a vav, taf lamed daled saf. Sometimes with two vavs, taf vav lamed daled vav saf. Sometimes without the first vav, taf lamed daled vav saf. And sometimes without the second one, taf vav lamed daled saf. Now, why the need for the varied spellings? And when is one style used and when is the other? What does this have to do with the doublespeak of Abraham giving birth to Yitzchak, or descendants and ancestors anyway? You know, in an opening benediction in the halls of Congress, a place where he was able to teach Torah in bi-monthly sessions to a nonpartisan group of lawmakers and their staffs starting in 1983, the late great Rabbi J. Marcus Zatzal told the story of an old woman who on one Rosh Hashanah night found herself without anyone with whom to exchange Rosh Hashanah greetings. She made her way to the Aron Kodesh alone, opened the Ark, and readied herself to exchange greetings with Hashem. But she wondered out loud, what does one bless Hashem with on Rosh Hashanah? What does he lack and need? She thought for a moment, and then she said that she offered Hashem the one blessing she figured he desired most, nachas. Nachas von the Kinder, nachas from the children. Nachas is a huge bracha. We can daven for it. We bless each other with it. But it's not always guaranteed. Sometimes it's deficient, and it doesn't always come the same way from each descendant. Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch explains that the lack of a vav in a descendant in the word toldos is indicative of some sort of deficiency. If it's in the first vav, then the deficiency is in the descendant, perhaps in his or her character. If it's in the second vav, it might indicate a deficiency in the plurality or the size of the descendant. And if it's deficient in both, then perhaps there are two deficiencies. And when we have both vavs, then there's nothing missing at all. And so hence in Bereshis, when Hashem refers to Toldos Hashamayim Va'aretz Tav Vav Lamed Daled Vav Saf, where the creation of Hashem is complete and lacking of any deficiency, there's no need to eliminate a Vav. On the other hand, Esav's children might be populous, but they're bereft of morality and proper spirituality. And so hence, at the end of Parshas Vayishlach, we'll read of Toldos Esav, Taf Lamed Daled Vav Saf, without the first Vav. In our Parsha, we find that Toldos, Taf Vav Lamed Daled Saf, appears without the second Vav, because although there were some descendants of Yitzchak who imbibed the lessons of Yitzchak, the larger number, as Rashi notes, we speak of both of Yitzchak's sons, including Yaakov and Esav, where Esav's numbers were much larger, those do not. Yes, to be a descendant, one does not only need to come from someone physically. One needs to relate to the lessons, teachings, and morals of the ancestor, or you're not a proper descendant. You're just deficient. Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, famed Lutzker Rav, noted that there are two types of father-son relationships. One's biological, the other is based on influence. And while the biological relationship is not unique to mankind, it applies to the animal kingdom as well, the influential relationship is unique to mankind. And as descendants, we ought to ask ourselves, what ethics, values, and midos are we developing and learning from our ancestors? That influence seems more profound than simply giving birth to a descendant. You're learning meaning and purpose when you follow, and you create nachas through that yachas, through that connection. But like the lady Rabbi Marcus spoke about, nachas is a bracha, and Rav Chaim of Volozhin noted that brachos require a source. If we want our descendants to be able to provide us with nachas, then we need to be solid ancestors for them. The late great Rabbi Dr. Abraham J. Potorsky Zatzal noted that our children are sensitive and they detect whether our Yiddishkeit is genuine or superficial. If they observe parents who are serious about Yirat Shamayim, about midos, about mitzvah observance in a positive atmosphere, then they'll want to emulate those qualities in their own lives and homes. However, it will be no surprise that children learn to not want to attend davening, or they attend it with a lack of interest when they see parents approach shul as more of a social club than a chance to converse with Hashem. The descendants, you see, learn from the ancestors. And as recent as this week, a venerated educator of Yaakov Bender decried the rise of a dangerous alcohol epidemic in our kids and communities. He noted that when the parents complain about the child who drinks, his initial reaction is to ask whether the parents drink. I asked Daddy, do you drink? And the father does drink, he said. We glorify these things, Rabbi Bender noted, and our kids are seeing it. The Torah ties Avram and Yitzchak together to show us that the legacy is a story written by two hands, the ancestors who model and the descendants who mirror. The Torah repeats Avram's fatherhood of Yitzchak to tell us that influence works both ways. Ancestors lead descendants, and descendants justify ancestors. When we glorify that which is empty, then the children will chase emptiness. When we glorify that which is holy, they run towards holiness. If we want our children to inherit the best of us, then the best of us must be present, consistent, and real. You know, every day we write a line in that story through our speech, through our habits, through our Shabbos table, our reactions, our joy and mitzvos. The culture in our homes becomes the character in their lives. That's our glorified Toldos. That's our legacy. It's also our best shot at the bracha of nachas. You see, nachas is not about luck. It's planted by the ancestors and harvested by the descendants. May Hashem give each and every one of us the wisdom and the opportunity to experience real Yiddish nachas and to wish one and all a Shabbat Shalom to all.